Let's talk just a little bit about your project in Cleveland, because
Okay.
this is one of the wonderful pieces we have down below. So I know this again is a more intensive project, but you were invited by Mocha Cleveland to come in and did they have guidelines for you, or?
Um, I don't think they really had any guidelines. When I did go there, I think that, at that point in time, most of the projects that I had been sort of known for doing were pretty directly related to the waterfront. And, a lot of um, my interest was in that sort of thing. So when I arrived there, they quickly drove me down to the lake and sort of took me along the lake and showed me some different things, which was really interesting. And and there were certain aspects about it that were interesting to me, and that it's there's a like a homeless shelter that's a waterfront homeless shelter there, and that was kind of cool. And yeah, but I felt like that at that time, I hadn't myself been, it was the first time I was doing a project away from like really a coastal town, and I think I was a little like hung up on that, and just the idea that I felt like a lot of the things that I was talking about in my work had a lot to do with just the transient nature of waterfront communities and port towns, and how that affects the culture of those places where there's sort of this different exchange of ideas and people coming and going and whatnot, and then how that shapes the communities around them. So I didn't really know how to react to the lake that much, and then I didn't really know what I was going to do. And then that's when I sort of started to find out about the going up and down. I was traveling up and down the Cuyahoga River with this other guy, and he pointed out, and I pointed out this little inlet, like a little cutout in the river, and that was when he started to explain to me about the Kingsbury Run, and told me about the murders that had occurred there, and about the hobo community that used to exist. And then I went back and started researching a lot about this transient community, and how massive it had once been.
So you didn't know about it until your first visit?
Yeah, I didn't know anything about it.
And then you
I think it actually might have been my
train
my second, or I think I made several visits before I actually figured out what I was going to do. Yeah, it took a while. I had a bunch of different ideas, but nothing really that stuck. And then it kind of just hit me. Yeah.
And so here we have. Do you know when the photo is from?
That photo is from 1938.
And so you're looking at the shanty towns around the river?
That would have been, like along the one of the shanty towns, like along the Kingsbury Run. I think that one's from 1938, because I believe that was when they rounded up everybody that lived there and burnt the shanty town down. I think that's when that picture was taken, and drove everybody away.
And so you took on the life of a hobo, jumping trains and kayaking through canals.
Yeah, I ended up as I was, began doing more research about Cleveland and the history with this community and whatnot. And as the project started to develop, I decided I really needed to get a better understanding of what was still going on today, as far as people hopping freight trains and whatnot. So I took a little trip across the country on freight trains.
How far did you get?
I went from New York to Cleveland, and then I kept going up to Chicago. Made an accidental trip down to St. Louis. Ended up back in Chicago. Then went out to Minneapolis, and which I just learned at 42, 41 years old to say correctly. I've been calling it Minneapolis my entire life. Yeah, and then I ended up there, and then but then went back later, and then went the rest of the way from Minneapolis to San Francisco. But at any rate,
made it across the
yeah, I did. Yeah, but I had to break it up. And yeah, and then eventually came back to Cleveland, and that's when I started breaking into the sewer system, I guess. Yeah.
Again, sanctioned activities. Completely sanctioned.
Oh yeah,
activities.
absolutely. Yeah. You gotta.
And so, working with the mosaics as well as, are you? I mean, fascinated that you have a master's in painting.
Yeah.
And I don't see a lot of your painting.
Yeah, I don't really paint that much, do I? I guess. But what is painting, anyways? I suppose. I don't know. I mean, I guess it all is kind of.
Okay.
I don't know.
These are. I thought you don't have to go into the details of every project, but I thought we could show some of the images and how extensive you throw yourself with. Each project must be a couple of years of your life to develop.
Pretty much each project I spend anywhere between
this one here,
1 or 2 years working on it.
Ron
longer.
and I went to in Gowanus, went to where they were building some sculpture, and we saw your
yeah.
place. This is his submarine, 19th century style, or
it's based on a submarine that was used during the Revolutionary War to.
Even older.
Yeah, it was used in the Revolutionary War to attack British ships in the harbor.
It's surprisingly large. Like when you're next, what's it, about 15 feet tall?
I think that the whole thing is 10 feet tall.
10 feet tall?
Yeah. Oh, and you know what? That's not including the top, though. I think you're right. It's a little bit taller than that. It's from the base to the, it's not including the metal cap. So I guess it's probably more like.
So you're pretty brave. Did you actually? How far did you sail this?
I would say probably about maybe like I don't even think that's a mile. Maybe it's a 3/4 of a mile or something like that from where I launched it to where I met up with the cruise ship and then got arrested. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this might be a good time to open up for questions. Do we have any questions tonight?
Oh, when the pigeons went through customs? I don't know. I wasn't around for that. I mean, I can tell you what happened when I ran into the pigeons and they had the cigars, But I think it's pretty easy to guess, Yeah, we smoked them, At least the first one, Yeah. Almost all of those cases that I made with the resin have cigars in them, but one of them doesn't. I don't know which one it is, though. Yeah.
Do you have an idea of what you're going to work on next?
Maybe a tan. I don't know. Summertime. I don't know. I got no idea, actually, what I'm going to be doing next. I think, I never really know until right before. Yeah, it takes a little while. I think usually, I don't know. How does that work, really? Do you know? No, I don't. Yeah. I don't. Yeah, I think right now I'm just kind of work on some drawings for a while, and I try to I really don't like doing projects that are too crazy in the fall. And when I do, I try to always make stuff small enough so it fits on a boat, so that way I can work. Like when I did the piece that you guys have here, the one from Cleveland, was done entirely on a boat. I don't know if you knew that, but yeah, and because the idea of sitting in a studio in the summertime kind of breaks my heart. So that's why everything from that show was all diptychs, was just because I needed to make sure that it fit on a boat. And then I would take the piece down to this boat every day and sail it out into the middle of the East River and anchor it there. And then I would throw a fishing rod in the water, which I hardly ever caught anything, mostly just a lot of crabs. And then I would work on the mosaic all day, and then occasionally jump off the boat and go for a swim, and then get back on the boat and then keep working. Which kind of like sort of, I never felt like I felt guilty that I was, wasting a beautiful day indoors. But then I also never felt guilty that I wasn't in the studio working. So I was just like so I don't know. And then last summer that was a little bit more complicated when I was getting ready for this project. And so I think this summer my plan is to just try to work on a lot of small drawings and work on them outdoors. Yeah.
So your reproduction of the turtle, does that still exist, or did you?
It does. It has a big hole in it from when the police. We fixed the hole, right? Yeah, that's right. But there was it still exists. Yeah, it took us a little while to get it back from the police.
It was impounded?
Yeah, it was funny. They made me sign this letter. I don't know I don't know who wrote this letter, but it clearly wasn't written by an attorney. But I had to sign this letter that basically, when I got it back, after they held it for a long time too, they really had us sweating, right? Right up until like a couple days before my show was supposed to open, they just kind of hung it over our head like they weren't going to give it back. And then they finally gave it back, but they made me sign this letter that basically said I would never take it out into the East River again. Which basically, I was like thinking, it doesn't say I can't take it out into a different body of water, like the Hudson or the Harlem River. It also doesn't say that I can't take it, that I can't lend it to somebody else and let them take it out. And it doesn't say that I can't just build a different submarine and take that one out. So I was like, sure, I'll sign this. And then, that seems perfectly fine, and then that's what happened. And then they gave it back to us, Yeah.
So where is it?
It's in a friend of mine's space because it's way too big to fit in my studio. So
Art form called it one of the 100 most recognizable sculptures in the world. And just so one of the things where
I think that was only in the past 5 years. Not, yeah. That wasn't in the world in the history of art. I think everybody's gonna call bullshit on that, but yeah.
one of the things we're known for in the paper are people who carry the bail money for this guy. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your run-ins with certain law enforcement.
So you're on a first name basis with the National Homeland Security?
Yeah. I think I was taken off of that list, apparently.
Oh.
Yeah.
They didn't
And
know you went to Somalia.
There were several people that kind of claim responsibility for getting me off that list. They're like, you know how you used to be on that list and you're not on it anymore? And they're like, well, I'm the guy that got you off that list. And I'm like, but this other guy told me he was the guy who got me off. So I don't exactly know how I got off the list, but I know that at some point I was on a list, and then at some point later I got asked by the State Department to do a project, for the State Department. So I was like, man, you guys really aren't.
That's what I was reading. That's the
I don't know.
part.
I can't really tell what's going on, Because then I just got audited by the IRS, and they're basically saying that I owe them all this money because my artwork I'm not a legitimate artist, and that it's not, what I do is not considered legitimate art, which sounds sort of like a little bit like, Nazi
You got
Germany
an official
or something like.
document from the government saying that you
There's
don't make official art.
There's an auditor that
That's
basically is
excellent.
basing their entire audit on me that I can't deduct certain things because it's not real art. It's not legitimate. And I'm like, who is this person and what is their qualifications to make that decision? I don't know.
Well,
but
Jerry Saltz might have something to say
yeah,
about
I
that.
don't know. I don't know how you really deal with that situation. But then I started thinking, I'm like, if that's true, and I'm not a legitimate artist, then how come I'm still paying them taxes on money that I make if I sell some art? But then I just can't deduct anything. So I was like, maybe I should just go with like the idea that I am not a real artist and that I'm like a degenerate, and then I should just set up a nonprofit to basically support my mental illness, and people could just donate money to me as a nonprofit for my cause, and then I just won't give them government anything, like because I'm,
Good luck with that.
Yeah. I don't know, but yeah.
Any more questions?
Sure. Where should I start? Oh yeah. Yeah, okay. So yeah, I did this project before I guess the second to last project I did was in China. As I mentioned, it was through a program that was being run by the State Department, where they were sending a few different artists to different countries that I guess we have sort of semi-tumultuous relationships with too, is sort of the idea, and it's sort of supposed to be this kind of art diplomacy deal that they were doing that I think they no longer do. But at any rate, I was selected to go to China, and I guess I should probably speed this up a little bit, right? Dragging it out. Yeah. Basically, I went there and I did some. They wanted me to do something in Shanghai, and so I went there and I kind of and I had to do it within 45 days. So I sort of started thinking about the obviously the water and and how the rivers in China have shaped so much of the way that the whole country's history is. And I started reading, a lot of the, history and different legends and whatnot. And then I stumbled across the legend of the Shangshao, which is, everybody knows it's the Chinese zodiac. And what I didn't realize was how the whole zodiac calendar was, the legend of how the zodiac calendar was formed was, the legend is basically that 5,000 years ago there was a great emperor that, in order to determine to make time easier for people to understand, he was going to organize this swimming race with 12 different animals and have them swim across a great river, and which in my case I assumed it was the Yangtze River because that was the one I was closest to, and that the winner would be the first animal of the calendar that would be in the next, and as the animals came in, it would determine the sequential order that they fell in and whatnot. So, but according to the legend, the rat cheated in the race, and the rat won the race, but the rat cheated. So when I read about that, I decided that maybe, being an American who questions everything and is used to people
Not taking the government word for
saying,
that.
if something's not fair, that you point it out or whatever. I was like, well, that doesn't really seem fair that he cheated, so why don't we just have a rematch and redo the race? And that's sort of basically what we did, is we redid the race and tried to get all 12 animals together within 45 days. And because the water's probably a little bit dirtier than it was 5,000 years ago, it didn't really seem right to put the 12 animals in the water and have them swim across, and I didn't really know what was going to happen. We had like a tiger running around on the street when it got to the other side too. So we decided to put all the animals in boats and have a regatta with live animals across this river in China, and then also the town that I was that I ended up doing the race in was kind of famous for their local opera. So we had 12 different opera singers write opera songs from the animals' perspective that they would sing while they were dressed up like animals on the boats at the same time while the race was going on.
And who won?
The horse won, surprisingly, because everybody sort of thought the horse. The other thing was that it was really important to me was, you're sort of trying to get this like cross-cultural thing going. Is sort of the idea. It's supposed to be like, diplomacy, and I was like, people in China really like to gamble. Americans really like to gamble. I was like, why don't we just bet on the race, everybody? Because like that
This is
seems
from
like
your
a good way to
upbringing in
like get
Boston?
everybody like involved. Like have people gambling in New York and other cities, and people can gamble there and whatnot. But they forgot that the State Department, they don't really like gambling, especially when you're because it's illegal and you're using taxpayers' money to set up something that's totally illegal. So they didn't really like that part. But at any rate, everybody thought the horse was going to lose because it was like the heaviest boat. I mean, that and the cow. And nobody really knew what was going to happen when you put a horse or a cow on a boat, But, and I don't know if maybe that the guy who had the horse on his boat just really, really wanted to get the other side fast because he wanted to get the horse off his boat. But the horse won, and then the cow came in like second, I think. Yeah. So
The weight helped.
I don't know, but yeah.
What kind of boats? I mean, old-fashioned Chinese junks?
They were like these. They're like little gondolas, and basically, most of the people, the town that I did in used to be like a fishing community, and now it's sort of like almost like it's sort of a suburb to Shanghai, and now the town is kind of like a tourist town. Not so much for foreign tourists, but for people from Shanghai to go to as like a weekend getaway. It's kind of like the, I don't know, and most of the people that used to be fishermen just use these boats to take people around on like little tours of their little canal town. And it's probably like one of the only places in that area that looks exactly like what Shanghai used to look like 50 years ago, or which was basically stayed pretty much the same up until I think really like the 70s.
How
or
did
80s
the
when it
animals
started.
like being on the boat and being sung to by Chinese opera singers?
We didn't really. The animals went pretty smoothly. Like not.
Wait a
no
minute, I
major-
have a horse. He would not like
Yeah.
being on a boat and
It was-
having Chinese
Getting
opera.
the horse was a little tricky. Just getting it on, and that was a little bit nerve-wracking for a minute. But once the horse was on, it was fine. And everybody was a little bit concerned about that. But I mean, people have been moving like cattle and livestock on boats that way for thousands of years. So I kind of figured it was
You
going
were
to be
confident.
okay. Yeah. The rat? Oh, like how did the rat do? The rat didn't do that good. I mean, I think the rat came in. It didn't come in last, but came in. Not too great. I can't remember the exact numbers. I think it was like maybe 8th place or something like that. It was back there. Yeah.
Here, I'll take
Yeah.
one last question.
How do you picture the budgets? I mean, how do you, what is first your idea, and then you get funding, and you get funding, and then you come up with an idea, or you...
I think it's a combination of both. Sometimes I have an idea of something that I want to do, and then I just have to do it. And then there are various different ways that happens. Some of it's with support from the gallery. Some of it's me taking money out of my tattoo shop, and there's different and then there are other projects where I get invited someplace to do something and I have no idea what I'm going to do when I get there, and they just say, we have a budget and we'd like you to do something. And I definitely like that challenge too, of just coming to a new place and not and having being in a totally new place and just trying to figure out what is it that relates to me and and what I'm going to do. Yeah.